Good morning, folks. Hope you're all doing very well. So this is just going to be a run through of the program. I've got no particular order of things that I want to get through. I'm just going to go through every day and give you some general advice as to how to approach each session. So keep it really relaxed. We'll see how long this is. Sorry ahead of time if it's quite lengthy, but hopefully you'll get something from it. So day one. We're moving into more of a volume phase. Once you kind of get to like peak strength, so imagine top of the pyramid. What you then want to do is you want to come right back down, and you want to build the base wider so that ultimately the peak is higher. Now, I'm a big fan of variation within training because I firmly believe in the law of adaptation, that when you do the same thing over and over again, your body gets somewhat accustomed to it and you don't get the same levels of stress to force adaptation. So you'll notice there's a lot of maybe new ways of performing familiar exercises. But let me explain the benefits of those as we go through. So first up, we on the Monday, day one, we have pause bench press. Now we're doing 3 sets of 8 reps on that. The benefit of a pause bench press is that we're making sure everybody's coming down to the chest. Okay, that's the first thing, because as the weight increased through the last training block, a lot of people were scrimping on the depth that they were bringing the bar down to. They were maybe coming to about here and then pressing out. Nothing wrong with that. You're still developing your strength, of course you are, but you're really missing out on lengthening the muscle tissue. And the lengthening of that tissue is going to cause a higher degree of mechanical tension that's going to force a higher rate of stimulus for growth. So that's both in terms of strength and size of the actual muscle tissue. So I want to kind of deal with that. And first up, we've got pause bench press. The nice thing about pausing on the chest is that you have to learn to conjure up all the energy and deliver it. It also gives you a chance to really tighten your back, keeping the scapula in place. Because if you bench with your scapula protracted, you're exposing the shoulder down. Get down. Sorry, it's a pooch. And you don't want to do that. Okay, we want this to be connected to the pec, and in order to do that, we have to retract the scapula. Now, there's also the elasticated element of the pause bench. So when you come down, if I was to come down and go straight away, there's a thing called the long short cycle, where when you lengthen, it'll pop you back to the short position of the muscle. Position, don't know if that's the right word, but it's like an elastic band, stretch, pop. And we remove that by putting the pause in. So it's good because ultimately when you go back to bringing it back in, you should be able to, in theory, lift more weight. The other thing to really mention here is that we've put the bench first because overall, big improvements on deadlift and squat for a lot of people, but the bench wasn't moving. And typically you would find that anyway, but the bench, I want more progression across the membership base. So I'm prioritizing that movement because you'll have more energy hitting that movement if you put it first in the exercise selection. Next up is box squat. The box squat, really, it's not about going heavy here. It's about coming down, fully sitting into the bench, and then rallying all the force that you have, switching that on and standing up quick. And when you get up to the top, it's a contraction of the glutes, and you should really feel that bar kind of wavering around a little bit in the back because you've driven so much energy into it. The box is there because there's a standardized depth. Now, depending on your height, that depth is going to be different for you, of course, but it's really, again, about removing that elasticated element of the squat, or some people would refer to it as your squat rhythm. So when you remove that, you brace hard, and then you have to gather all that energy and drive it again. So it's the same mentality here as the pause bench, but just on your squat pattern. And that's 3x8 as well, 3 sets of 8 reps. Next up, we got a seated reverse dumbbell fly. The thing about that is, that's quite important because, again, rounded shoulders from everyone sitting at desks is something I'm constantly trying to deal with. So we're working the rear delts, the rear of the shoulder quite aggressively in this session. And throughout the week. It's something I have to work on because I also want to build everyone's external rotation, and the stronger the rear your shoulder is, the higher the chance of that external rotation. You'll not find a huge amount of literature on that, but I've been doing this a long time, and I've definitely noticed a connection between rear shoulder strength and external rotation. Because if you think about it, if I do that, the first thing that I can feel engaged is the rear of my shoulder. Next up, we have incline dumbbell curls, because who doesn't want big biceps? Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday session really for me is, I kind of went into this thinking hip. Okay, I want to develop the hip. So first of all, we've got barbell hip thrusters. All right, they get massively attached to this kind of Instagram bootylicious kind of fucking cult following that a lot of I would say both men and women follow, perverts. But the thing is, I hate how it's associated with just for women, because if I look at some of the athletes that I follow, a barbell hip thrust is something they do a lot of, because it's a very good exercise. And I just find that some guys don't do it enough. So I want that in there because it is a fucking really good exercise. And when you're doing this, make sure your hip's coming up nice and high. Make sure there's a proper contraction across the glute and that the hip is high. It's very easy to not finish the rep on this exercise, but I'm sure your coach will nip you about that. Next up, we got a split squat. Now, I like a split squat like a lot, because it's such a natural movement. We do it all the time, and I'm yet to find a better variation on a squat that will give you a bigger squat. Okay, because you're exposing the need for strong stability in each leg, limb, hip with the split squat. So yeah, nothing really else to say on that. The only thing I would say actually on that is get your distance right and your stride on that one, and settle into that be consistent with that across the training block. So I personally like my split squat that my knee just falls shy of the heel that's up front. I don't like a really long wide one, because I want to train my quads here. I don't want this split squat trained with a really wide stride, and I don't want it to become a glute or a hamstring kind of dominant split squat. I want the quads worked, because you've had the hip thrust prior to that, where the posterior has been worked enough, the glutes and hammies. So no, this needs to be quad dominant now. Incline dumbbell fly. So we're just basically taking the reverse fly and then going up to the top, so anterior. So looking to really work the shoulder and the chest. Don't go too heavy on a fly, and then learn how to get the stretch without, again, the scapula protracting. And then some dumbbell tricep kickback. Big thing on the tricep kickback, keep the elbow nice and high before you come back. Don't drop it and then come, because you're losing all the tension that you're really forcing through the tricep. Wednesday, so barbell pendlay row. Barbells on the floor. You break the inertia. You pull the dead weight. And you pull it up to the chest. Okay, it's an explosive row. The nice thing about it is that it doesn't put loads of strain on the back, because you're not constantly holding the weight or supporting the weight with your lumbar. You're resting the weight on the ground between each one. Now that does mean before you pull the bar, you're going to want to very aggressively brace into the core, laterally around the core, pull the shoulders in, and then you really want to slam that bar as fast as you can into the chest without obviously hurting yourself. Don't get to the point where your your lower back is starting the movement and then your upper back is finishing the movement. It needs to keep your torso absolutely rigid as you're doing that. Strict press. There's a barbell shoulder press, strict. Get it down as low as you can. Get it up over your head. Biceps to ear. Make sure the bar is not out in front. Dumbbell lateral raise. Lead with the elbow. Okay, don't come back the way, don't come out too front, because then you're going to work the front or rear delt. We're working the lateral delt right here, and you want to just stay nice and line with the body and think left with the elbow. That's the key to that movement. Standing, alternating dumbbell curl, straightforward. Incline bench press, 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps. Anytime you see 8 to 12, it means I'm expecting you to somewhat go to failure on these movements. So we're looking for something that's really stressing you. We're not looking to be within comfortable ranges and, kind of progressively overload this movement over a number of weeks. We're looking to fatigue. Now, there's pros and cons to this. The pro is you're going to usually stimulate for a higher rate of muscle tissue growth, but if you are ultimately running full steam ahead to improve your bench, fatiguing your system through an incline bench press on Thursdays will have a knock-on effect on your Monday bench day and your Saturday bench day. Bear that in mind. If you're gunning for a really big bench, you're not going to want to be doing the failure sets here. You're going to want to be progressively overloading this week in, week out. So find something you're comfortable with and progress it. On RDL, so Romanian deadlift, the tempo element of this is very, very important. So I want a 3 second down, I want a 2 second at the very bottom, and then as a fast up. The reason for that is because I want people to truly learn how to feel where their hamstrings are. I want them to achieve the full stretch of their hamstrings, because we are promoting, again, the tissue development, and we are training the full range of motion. A lot of people have much more range of motion in their hamstrings than they realize, and typically you will find most lifters will have to stand on top of a plate to give themselves more clearance before the bar hits the ground. 3x8 on that is a lot of reps once that gets heavy, so you might want to consider using some straps as well. Next up, we've got the seated dumbbell clean and press. I absolutely love this movement. It is an explosive curl and shoulder press. Seated, up and through, okay? Up and straight through. It's great. I'm not looking for strict reps here at all. It would be always indicated on a program, strict clean and press. I'm looking for shift as much weight aggressively as you can, from a long arm position in a hang to a long arm position in a vertical press. Next up, dumbbell skull crushers, just a wee bit more tricep work. Again, lock the upper arm in place, and as the extension. So, Friday we've got a clean and push press. It's one clean, and it's just going to be from the ground up to shoulders. We're not coaching this in the kind of traditional or conventional Olympic weightlifting style. It is just get it to your shoulders, and ideally this will technically be called a tall muscle clean, with no contact. So you're just putting all the effort you can, get it up to your shoulders, little dip, and then drive with the legs and finish with the arms. Push with the legs, press with the arms, hence the name push press. We will work on the timing element of that, because once you truly learn how to engage your legs with the push, the press part, you typically should find you're not really loading the arms as much as possible, really, at that point. The way I would try and always describe a push press is that I just always imagine like a car drifting through a corner. Your steering isn't as important on this, i.e. your arms, as much as the acceleration is what's controlling you in the corner. The legs, the acceleration you give to the bar is more important than anything else. Next up is the JM press. Now, a JM press is a really, really cool way of training like a bench press, but making it more tricep dominant. You basically do a bench press, but you fold your arms in down to around your neck, chin area, and then you press it up and through. Fold and press, but I'll show you that in the class. It's a really, really cool variation. It's like a mix of a bench press and a skull crusher. Incline Y raise, these are brutal. This is us back on the rear delt again, working the rear of the shoulder, trying to keep everyone's shoulders healthy and happy. I'll show you that in the session. You want to be strict with this one. You will find yourself tiring out super quick on it, but over a few weeks it'll come together. And then finishing up with dumbbell preacher curls. Now Saturday I'm keeping as a squat, bench, and deadlift day, and we're just in on 3 sets of 10 across each. You could honestly train squat, bench, and deadlift for the rest of your life, just those 3 compound movements, and you would take care of a lot of your body's movement patterns that need to be strong. That is the truth. And anyone that argues that, you've not really trained squat, bench, deadlift correctly. If you load manage these movements correctly, there's no reason why you just couldn't train this year in, year out. In fact, I know loads of people just do that. I mean, if you look at the number one natural powerlifter in the UK, Tony Cliff. Tony only trains squat, bench, deadlift. He doesn't train anything else. He only does that. He's just really good at selecting the weights and the rep schemes throughout the year. Sport specific. He trains for his sport. But he's fucking jacked. And you'll never find him doing a barbell curl. He's just jacked. Okay. And that's it. So how would I approach this? There's no reason why you couldn't come in and train across the entire week. If you correctly load the weights, there's nothing wrong with that. You would want to come to your coach or come to me or anyone else and just be like, look, I'm training 6 days a week here. I'm doing the strength class every day. These are my goals. How should I go about today's session in terms of loading the bar? So I've had this discussion with a member recently who's trying to develop a run. They're running, and we're talking about the notion of trying to move faster, more controlled movements, not loading like massively heavy and losing range of motion through that. So that kind of thing. Go to your coach, tell them what it is you're looking to work on, and we will guide you as to how best to go through that session in terms of loading the movements. There's no right or wrong or things you shouldn't be doing in terms of exercise selection. A lot of it will come down to the weight that you're using. So if you're doing less sessions, I would be more inclined to say to you, load it up. Okay, if you're doing loads of sessions, load of sessions, it'd be deciding where you're going to load up the week and where you're going to decide to go lighter. So yeah, I don't think there's anything really. I think there's anything more for me to say here, other than make sure you ask loads of questions in these sessions. Keep a track of all your weights. The program is going to be staying somewhat the same. I'll always manipulate it where I see things are needing to change. But we've been in and done one session this morning already, and I was pretty pleased how everyone was moving. These are encouraging signs. And obviously I'll get feedback from the other coaches as well. But I think that's it, guys. So I'll leave it there, and have a nice day.